Hi everybody, it's Jenn from McCreath. Today's Thursday, November 20th, 2014. Today is International Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is now also part of a growing movement known as International Transgender Week of Awareness, Education, and Activism. St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Home sweet home. We've made some good progress in terms of trans rights over the past couple of years. Still have a long way to go. Thankfully and luckily, there have been no reports of any trans-identified people being murdered in Newfoundland and Labrador. So that's step one, obviously. However, although we are now recognized in our Provincial Human Rights Act by virtue of the words gender identity and gender expression, having recently been added to the Act under the prohibited grounds for discrimination, we're still seeing challenges. Every time you amend an Act, you've got to follow up. In addition to legislation, you have regulations, you have policies, you have procedures, you have awareness. You probably have several other policies that now need to be amended accordingly. Common theme that has been discussed among trans community members across the country has been that, with the exception of Ontario and Alberta, trans people are unable to have identification documents modified unless they undergo comprehensive sex reassignment surgery. Now, this is an expensive procedure that's not even covered by provincial health care in about half of our provinces. Secondly, not all trans-identified people have been medically cleared to have the surgery, or in some cases don't even feel it's necessary. A case in Ontario, filed with the Ontario Human Rights Commission, led to a judgment in which Ontario Department of Vital Statistics, or whoever they're called, Service Ontario, were ordered to allow trans people to change their ID documents without having to go through surgery. This human rights case led Alberta to proactively decide to change their policies. Meanwhile, policies are continued to be looked at in a proactive manner in Nova Scotia, as well as several other provinces, to my understanding. On July 21st of this year, I sent an email to our minister responsible for Service Newfoundland, Labrador. At that time, it was Minister Brazel. I'm going to read excerpts of that email for you right now. Good evening, Minister Brazel. First of all, congratulations on your appointment to Cabinet, Minister for Service NL. I trust this is a role you will do very well with. Our province celebrated Pride Week the past 9 days. One of the themes that kept getting raised is the fact that Vital Statistics Act Section 26.1 does not allow transgender individuals to have identification documents changed unless they complete a, quote, transsexual surgery, unquote. Fortunately, not all transgender people identify as transsexual. Many do not pursue surgery on their genitals. Others cannot have it for various reasons, even if they would like to. There's a recent trend in which other provinces are loosening their laws regarding ID changes. The Ontario government recently lost a human rights case against a trans person who successfully won a judgment stating that it was discriminatory to not allow to have ID documents that matched their gender identity. I would like to see Newfoundland interestingly enough, shortly after the Ontario judgment, Alberta proactively changed their laws. I would like to see Newfoundland continue to demonstrate its leadership towards diversity and proactively change Section 26.1 as well. Alternatively, I know at least a dozen transgender people right here in the city of St. John's who are ready, willing to not only file a human rights complaint, but to take their fight to media and the courts. Rather than see government embarrassed by having to go through a human rights complaint process, I'd love to work with you to find a way to get these changes made proactively. while at the same time doing so in a manner that would not harm government or make it look bad. So I got a little brief reply. Hi Jennifer, thanks for bringing this to my attention. I will discuss with my officials to see what process should be followed to address the situation. I will be in contact in the upcoming weeks. July 21, August, September, October, November. 4 months minus a day. No follow-up. Okay, I get it. There's been a cabinet shuffle. Minister Brazel is no longer minister for that department. However, not good enough. All right, if we can't work through private emails, maybe it's time to take this matter public. And I guess that's what I'm doing by turning on my camera, talking about this issue. Now, ironically enough for me, I have had the surgeries and I have my new IDs. So this issue really does not affect me personally. So I'm doing this more for the good of all the other trans people out there who haven't had the privilege of going through the surgery, or for those who, for whatever reason, don't need it. A while ago, I worked in the information privacy business, as I'm sure many of you all know, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, of all places. Personal information, definition of private. Information about you, including your name, your health records, your sex or gender. And one of the fundamental principles of privacy is that entities should only be collecting, using, and disclosing personal information of individuals when required to do so for their job, or required by law, or if they have consent of the individuals. Trans people who have ID'd documents that do not correctly identify their gender identity are facing privacy violations every time they are ID'd. You want to rent a car? You need a driver's license. It's got a sex, they call it gender marker, but it's really a sex marker. Because that's basically, you are sexed by government based on what's between your legs when you're born. Even in cases where your sex, your gender identity, your gender expression doesn't matter, you're unnecessarily outed every time you have to display ID, which contains information about your sexed, your birth sexed label. Some of you that like to drink, you go to the liquor store, you're asked for ID. You go to an airport, you're going to be asked to see ID. You apply for a job. You want to rent an apartment. Everyone wants to see ID. And most ID does contain information about what's between your legs when you're born. It's really none of anyone's business. So not only is this a moral issue, it is a privacy issue. So I'm going to ask nicely. We have a new minister, Tony Cornset. Not even sure how to pronounce your name. Congratulations, you're the new Minister of Service Newfoundland Labrador. This email is going to be forwarded to you, along with a copy of this video. I'm going to ask once again for some action on this. Otherwise, there will be action on part of the trans community. Later today, over at Memorial University, there's going to be a gathering of trans people and their allies for a panel discussion. I won't be there, but there's likely to be at least 2, 3, 4 dozen trans people in that room, many of whom do not have identification documents that reflect their gender identity. And I'm sure a lot of these people would be quite happy to work with me and other trans activists to file a class action, either a lawsuit or a human rights complaint. So come on, government, let's deal with this. Let's be leaders. History shows that discrimination against trans people by government is a no-go. Most of the time when trans people have to take some sort of legal action against government, the trans people win. So government, come on. Let's change section 26.1 of the Vital Statistics Act and make it easier for trans-identified people to have ID documents that will not violate their privacy, their safety, security, or dignity. Jenn from McCreath, thanks for watching.